Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
It was a peephole look into a top-secret world, but just enough to grip the nation's attention and pose disturbing questions. What was the identity of a mysterious prisoner in one of Israel's toughest jails? And why the secrecy behind his extraordinary incarceration?
Prisoner X, and international scandals growing after an Australian-Israeli man with ties to the Mossad dies inside an Israeli maximum security prison. For over 2 years, Israel imposed a strict gag order on his 2010 death, but now the secret is leaking out. We'll speak with the Association for Civil Rights in Israel. Then we look at the controversial side of the drug war, the informants.
Because being an informant can be such a dangerous proposition, we have seen terrible tragedies in this area. Young people killed, become informants, come into contact with the criminal justice system in ways that they would not have otherwise done had they not been pressured by the government to become informants. And this is a concern for many families around this country.
In 2007, 23-year-old Rachel Hoffman was arrested for drug possession. To avoid prison, she became a police confidential informant. She was murdered in a botched undercover operation. We'll speak with Rachel's mother, Margie Weiss.
We want to make this world a safer and better place so that this never happens again to any more of our children. But as long as I'm alive, I will keep her spirit alive.
We'll also speak with New Yorker reporter Sarah Stillman. She just won a Polk Award for her piece, The Throwaways. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United Nations continues to warn of a growing humanitarian crisis as a result of Syria's unrelenting civil war. On Tuesday, Emergency Relief Coordinator Valerie Amos said much of the rebel-held north remains cut off from direly needed aid.
The situation in Syria is getting worse. The violence is causing widespread destruction and having a devastating impact on the lives of ordinary Syrian women, men and children. We are crossing conflict lines, negotiating with armed groups on the ground to reach more people in need. But we're not reaching enough of those who require our help.
The World Health Organization is now reporting a typhoid outbreak in a rebel-held area of the northeastern province of Deir ez-Zor. The WHO says some 2,500 people have caught typhoid because they've been forced to drink from a contaminated section of the Euphrates River. In some of the latest violence, at least 31 civilians were killed Tuesday in a Syrian regime bombing of the city of Aleppo. 14 children are reportedly among the dead. In Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, protests are continuing in support of hunger-striking Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. On Tuesday, hundreds of Palestinian detainees refused meals in solidarity with 4 hunger-striking prisoners. Hundreds of people, meanwhile, rallied across the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip, drawing fire from Israeli troops of tear gas and rubber-coated bullets. The prisoners include Samar Asawi, who's been on a hunger strike for more than 200 days, drinking only water. On Tuesday, an Israeli court ordered Asawi to remain behind bars indefinitely. His lawyer announced the decision.
The decision is to reject the appeal of the defense to release Samir immediately and to keep him behind bars until the last verdict, which will be given maybe in 2 weeks' time.
Asawi and another hunger-striking prisoner were initially released under the 2011 deal that freed Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, only to be rearrested and returned to an Israeli prison last year. Israel has refused to disclose the reasons for their rearrest, and they could each face at least 20 more years behind bars. Millions of workers have walked off the job in Greece today in a one-day strike against fiscal austerity. It was the latest in a series of actions against the wage cuts and tax hikes imposed as a condition of Greece's international bailout. Tens of thousands of people marched on the Greek parliament in Athens in the largest anti-austerity protest so far this year. President Obama held a public event with a group of firefighters and police officers Tuesday to pressure Republicans on the upcoming round of automatic budget cuts under the sequester. Obama wants Republicans to end tax breaks mostly for the wealthy to avoid the $85 billion in spending cuts set to take effect March 1st under a previous budget deal. In his remarks, Obama said the cuts will cause major economic damage.
So these cuts are not smart, they are not fair, they will hurt our economy, they will add hundreds of thousands of Americans to the unemployment rolls. So now Republicans in Congress face a simple choice. Are they willing to compromise to protect vital investments in education and health care and national security and all the jobs that depend on them? Or would they rather put hundreds of thousands of jobs and our entire economy at risk just to protect a few special interest tax loopholes that benefit only the wealthiest Americans and biggest corporations? That's the choice.
A new analysis from the economic group, Macroeconomic Advisors, warned on Tuesday the sequester will slow economic growth by more than half a percentage point and result in the loss of 700,000 jobs. The Supreme Court has agreed to take up what's being described as the most pivotal campaign finance case since the landmark Citizens United decision of 2010. On Tuesday, the court agreed to hear the challenge of a Republican activist who wants to lift the cap on individual donations to candidates, political parties, and political action committees. The activist, Sean McCutcheon, has joined with the Republican National Committee to contest the combined donation cap of $123,000 for campaigns during each election cycle. The case will be heard in October. North Carolina has enacted a new law imposing major cuts to aid for the unemployed. Jobless benefits will be slashed by nearly 1/3, and recipients will have less time to collect them. In addition to gutting state benefits, the bill also rejects millions of dollars in additional federal aid. North Carolina currently has the nation's 5th highest official unemployment rate at 9.2%. The measure takes effect July 1st. In a statement, the North Carolina Justice Center denounced Republican Governor Pat McCrory and state lawmakers, saying, quote, hundreds of thousands of jobless workers thrown out of work through no fault of their own will face deepening poverty as a result of this decision. A death row prisoner in Georgia has been granted a last-minute stay of execution. Warren Hill was set to be put to death for the murder of a fellow prisoner while serving a life sentence for fatally shooting his girlfriend. But a federal appeals court granted a last-minute reprieve, citing expert opinion Hill is mentally disabled. All 3 doctors who originally said Hill failed to meet the legal definition of mentally retarded have since reversed their opinion. Hill would have been the first prisoner executed in Georgia since Troy Anthony Davis in 2011. The ruling marks only a temporary delay, and Georgia can still appeal for the execution to proceed. A federal commission has found U.S. education policies are burdening students from low-income families. In a report, the Equity and Excellence Commission concluded, quote, no other developed nation has inequities nearly as deep or systemic. No other developed nation has so thoroughly stacked the odds against so many of its children. The panel goes on to call for greater investments in public education, better training of teachers, equality in allocating funds, and a new push for more ethnically diverse schools. The commission was created by Department of Education, but its findings largely reject the department's bipartisan education reform effort, saying the focus on charter schools and standardized testing has been, quote, poorly targeted. 4 people are dead after a shooting spree on Tuesday in the California area of Orange County. Over the course of an hour, unemployed part-time student Ali Sayed shot and killed a woman in her home and 2 commuters at random before taking his own life. Environmental activists shut down a wastewater site in Ohio Tuesday in a protest against hydraulic fracturing, known as fracking. One demonstrator climbed a 30-foot pole at the Green Hunter water storage facility, stopping trucks from dumping fracking wastewater. The site's operators want to increase its capacity for dumping and transporting fracking waste. 10 people were arrested in Tuesday's demonstration. A Palestinian filmmaker and his family were detained at Los Angeles International Airport Tuesday after arriving to attend this weekend's Academy Awards. The filmmaker, Imad Bernat, is nominated in the Best Documentary category for 5 Broken Cameras, which documents the growth of the resistance movement to the Israeli separation wall in the West Bank village of Bil'in. In a series of Twitter messages, the filmmaker Michael Moore said immigration officers told Bernat he would not be allowed to enter the country even after he showed them his Oscar invitation. Bernat and his family were eventually released after Moore phoned Academy attorneys. Moore quoted Bernat as saying, quote, "It's nothing I'm not already used to. When you live under occupation with no rights, this is a daily occurrence." To see our interview with Imad Bernat, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Nermeen Sheikh. Welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.
Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.